From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture in the ultimate adventure, murdering Jedi. No, the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I haven't murdered any Jedi yet, but happy to be here.
I thought I was on a different podcast. I'm Jennifer Landa.
I just wanted something a little different, a little sudden spark of danger.
Spicy.
I'm enjoying so much about the Acolyte that there's so many wonderful Jedi, but then there is all this darkness perspective, which is very fun. We are, of course, here to discuss the first two episodes of the new Star Wars television show, The Acolyte. We're very excited to dive in. We'd like to start by just checking in with the actual titles of the episodes, because sometimes those are very revelatory, and of course the credits. So we are talking about season 1, episode 1 of The Acolyte, which is called Lost/Found. I hadn't actually said it out loud yet to realize that one has to say slash. Anyway, that first episode, Lost/Found, is written and directed by showrunner, creator Leslie Headland. And we are also discussing season 1, episode 2, Revenge/Justice, written by Jason Micallef and Charmaine DeGrate, directed by Leslie Headland. Apologies if I mispronounced those writers' names. I also wanted to throw out here right at the top, because I don't feel like we've really discussed it on ForceCenter, that the music is by a person named Michael Abels, who has looks like he started his actual soundtrack scoring career, composing career, in 2017 by doing Jordan Peele's films. So he's done Get Out, Us, Nope, and a bunch of other stuff. We celebrate the different composers in Star Wars. I don't feel like we've talked much about this, and I was really intrigued by this music having a very classic John Williams-y feel. So I wanted to throw that into the credits at the top. Ken, did you have any reaction just to the credits, the music?
I'm glad you mentioned the music. We hadn't discussed it much, and I am so bad with composers, so I don't bring them up and often don't hear the music till like the third viewing, because that's just my entire life. But I absolutely was keyed in on this one because it is new. It's not unlike that first episode of Mando where you're like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And that was unique, and this is wonderfully unique while still making me feel very much at home in Star Wars. So good job.
Yeah. Jennifer, any thoughts on the writing credits, the music?
Oh, the music I absolutely loved. Immediately was drawn in by it. I thought, who's composed this? Because it's fantastic. There was even at one point it said intriguing music in the subtitle. I was like, yes, it is intriguing. It's mysterious, but still classically Star Wars. Writers, fantastic. I was looking them up this morning on IMDb. Some interesting credits there. So yeah, it's a very, very great cast and crew already.
Yeah, I thought so too. I really just enjoyed the music because I thought it was in some ways like the closest to John Williams, like really evoking specific moods and tones that match classic Star Wars, but also felt really different. I really liked the end credits in particular for the first episode with the darkness and the drums and the lower chords and all that. It was just like a really interesting, I think the music to me did a really great job of setting the tone in the ongoing Star Wars balance between the old and the new. It was really enough to kind of connect it to Skywalker saga while still being something different. So I wanted to shout that out right at the top. We're going to get into our overall reactions. Ken, let's start with you. Did you love it, like it, struggle with it? Where'd you go with your overall reaction?
Yeah, I really like it. I really like it. I think I was, highly anticipating this show, and since its announcement on Investor Day, whatever that was, and this was my favorite thing to come out of London. That said, I think we're still in an early episode kind of situation where, not unlike say Andor or something, and it's not even the setting the pieces on the table kind of cliche. You're ramping this up, and you want to be, I think, part of what you want as a writer in these situations is to build this world, pull the audience in with these new characters. These are so new, right? We don't have as much celebrated and discussed going into this show outside of Skywalker saga, which I still argue most things that people say are outside the Skywalker saga aren't. This, though, I think truly is. And I think it hit all those points for me where I put down this note of it's really good episodes, but really wonderful theme ideas that I can't wait to get into. So therefore, I'm excited about what's to come. But more than anything, like I really want to know now what Yoda's doing during this time. Is Dex open for business? Like I'm pulled into this well-crafted world, and yes, it has a lot of the High Republic, but I have drifted off the High Republic books, not in a bad way, just in a life way. So that's not even helping me. I'm being pulled in by these episodes, not the books or anything that have come before that are connected. So yeah, there we go. That was my overall note. I was affected by a little bit by knowing too many of the beats. We'll talk about that in marketing. I still at times struggle with Star Wars on an episodic level, but that's a personal thing that I work through. That's not a problem with the show, but I still have to know what my weaknesses are as a fan while I'm sitting down to watch something, so that I don't judge the show on something it's not trying to be or can't be, if that makes sense. And that reared its head up a little bit in these episodes, but man, I'm pulled in. Already have your feelings, soul feelings, Jackie feelings. Can't wait to discuss it all.
Talnaka feelings, so many great feelings. Pip feelings. Just to kind of highlight future discussion on the episode. When you talk about episodic, are you talking about cliffhangers? Are you talking about where the story breaks, or how far we get in the story in a given episode? Is that in the territory of what you're being aware of?
It's Star Wars on the small screen is never going to be on the big screen, and I'm okay with that. Very much okay with that. But it sometimes, if it doesn't slap me upside the head, I feel as though, well, man, did I like that? Well, I actually did. You know what I mean? And I've had discussion. I have one friend who's like, he's a giant Star Wars fan. He goes, I watch it later when I can binge it. I need John Williams music to rattle my skull. And that's never going to happen with anything here. You have to take it for what it is and let it get into your soul in a different way. And especially the second viewing, there's stuff that I emerged with soul. That was some of the warmest stuff I've seen in Star Wars in a while. And that's the stuff I'm looking for. That's the stuff I'm looking to connect with versus all the because I have a lot of the kind of pedantic stuff. Yeah. And I'm always here to push past that. Always. Yeah.
It's lucky that one of the themes of these first two episodes appears to be letting go. I'm sure we all deal with some letting go. Jennifer, what was your overall reaction to these first two episodes?
I absolutely loved it. This is right up there with me for the first season of The Mandalorian, Andor, which I loved. This one is on the top tier for me for Star Wars series. It was actually, to be perfectly honest, the first time, besides The Mandalorian, which I saw in person, the first time where I was not distracted, where I did not get a moment where I was like, got a notification and wanted to check it, or pulled out another tab and wanted to do something. You know what I mean? I was engrossed the entire time, which to me says a lot. And I think it's because it felt fresh and it felt dangerous. It felt like Leslie Headland was really, there was a moment where I was like, if this was an HBO show, I would love it even more. But she really towed the line to where it kind of did start to get into that HBO dangerous territory, which I really, really appreciated. There was a lot of creepy elements. I was turning off the lights at night. I got scared, you guys. I actually got scared remembering a few things. Like, yes.
I'm not disagreeing. What did you get? This is fascinating. I want to know this. What
There were
scared
a couple things. Like there was a creepy walk of young May. It was like this kind of like stop motion, like creepy walk. Oh my gosh, that freaked me out. Well, she was just a shadowy figure. We couldn't even see her. Like the face thing. Oh, and then that weird Hellraiser.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Hellraiser alien inmate. I just had moments where I turned around and I saw a shadowy figure. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
So anyways.
Waiting for family members' eyes to go black. Yeah.
The haunted ghostly girl, I don't want to say trope in a negative way, but the haunted ghostly girl from every horror movie that does the slow, okay. I get you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
It's me, your sister. I'm like, So loved it. This show is, and these are the first two episodes. I can't wait to see where we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I really, really loved it. I think, I've seen people having discussions about sort of logic, the constant sort of canon accuracy versus accepting some amount of unreliable narration or kind of waiting out, well, yep, maybe this feels off now, but what's the eventual answer going to be? I hear all those things. I see all those things. I'm paying attention to all those things. But I really, really enjoyed both of these 2 episodes because they kind of delivered exactly what I always want out of Star Wars, which is a mix of the old and the new. We can be worried about these characters because we don't know them, but we are leading up to not the Skywalker saga necessarily of the individual characters of the Skywalker saga. This isn't what happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi's grandfather kind of thing, but it is setting up the world in which the characters of the Skywalker saga are made and the choices that are made. So it's this great mix of new and old that I really, really love. I think I was pulled in, even though the first episode had some moments for me where I was bummed out that I was too ahead of it because of the marketing. That's about the marketing, though. That isn't about the show. But I was really drawn in by the first episode in particular because I thought it had a better emphasis, in my opinion, on some elements of Star Wars that are always in there, but you can turn the dial up and down on. And I thought the first episode had, in particular, great adventure serial pacing of we start with action, then we establish May, and there's already, a fire in space. We're putting that out. And then there's a prison ship crashing, and it's like it went. So it really kept me with it. I also just thought with everything you're describing, Jen, with all of the more frightening things that you can fear when you turn out the dark, to turn out the light, I just thought it had more sort of inventive pulp and fantasy weirdness. And as I have banged on about before, I think, when the first Star Wars came out in 1977, it was that, a billion worlds with a billion weird creatures. And I remember my friend being like, I'd never in my life seen anything like Hammerhead, like Momo Nadun, and as we build and build on this fantasy world, we have to make it fresh and surprising to kind of reignite that feeling of, we're in a bonkers weird galaxy where any bonkers weird thing can happen. You can have a little organic drug guy who sleeps on criminals' faces. You can have that the weird head tentacle guy. You can have droid pilots that turn into chairs. You can have meditation, leave me alone for 10 years barriers. I somehow used the Force to never pee in 10 years. Like all sorts of like great stuff that is just kind of fantasy weirdness. So I think all of that flavor stuff for me that you can dial up and dial down, and I think is dialed down in shows like Andor, even though Andor is phenomenal, we're dialed up here, and that's a personal fave of mine, those elements. So I was really happy to see those there. In terms of that balance of old and new, I thought it was really savvy in terms of using what we know about Star Wars to make this fresh. That we had that scene, that the great opening scene with Indara and with May, and with some familiar themes with dark side scariness and all that, and then cutting immediately to Osha. And Osha, that first scene with Osha had all these elements we know from Han Solo to Cal Kestis to Luke and Anakin down on the farm, of coded as nice, friendly, working everyday person who has a lovable droid who's just the kindest and nicest, and taking that, all of those Star Wars tropes of the light side and making us immediately ask, but are they a murderer? Like, imagine, the first time you meet Luke Skywalker and he's just a kid who's being friendly to droids, but hanging over him is, but did he kill everybody? It was a great way to me to take two kind of familiar Star Wars characters and tropes and give them tension by combining them in that way in those first 2 scenes.
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know when. I'd love to, quite frankly, rip into the marketing at some point, but maybe now's not the time. I get why they did it, but I also, here's what I think the show did, and what I love about what you're talking about is I think the show is like, cool, you solved it. You saw the clue on our poster. Got it. She's twins, or there's something afoot. Good for you. This isn't about that. This is about something else. So that scene, what you're talking about, Joseph, did help me go, all right, maybe I didn't get this figured out. Maybe what is going on? Because every time she wakes up like she just had a bad dream. Like there's stuff going on there that I like what the show is going. Cool. Got it. You understood the how, the what. We're going to deliver the why, and the why is going to be the ride.
Yeah, that was my last kind of big picture thought. Is I feel like we're going to talk a lot about Yord. Yord seems to be a fan favorite already. People either love him or love to hate him. I'm loving to hate him, but I feel like the show is kind of having this fun game with the audience where it is challenging us to not Yord it up, to not be so certain about the answers. I kept thinking as I was watching of the Yoda quote in Empire Strikes Back to Luke when Luke's saying, "I'm never going to get the ship out," and Yoda says, "So certain are you that there is this danger in being overly certain." And I feel like with the discussion game, the pundit game, sometimes it can just be like, "What's the answer? We're looking for the answer." And yep, we called it. It's twins. But I feel like everything in the show is introducing uncertainty. And even with a lot of the kind of like basic setup answers that we get in the first 2 episodes, there are endless questions of, what truly happened to May and Osha all those years ago. Is there more to May and Osha's connection than just being twins? Who is the masked Darksider? How did Osha really spend her night off? Why did Osha choose to walk away from the Jedi all those years ago? The show is presenting us with lots and lots of answers, so we think we know what's going on, but I feel like it is also setting us up to not be overly certain, to not run in with our lightsabers of answers with Yord, but wait and question. Jen, how did you feel about that? Did you feel like the show was telling us answers, or did you feel like you were leading in because you had more questions than answers by the end of these first 2 episodes?
It cracked me up because it's like one of those little boards where you're trying to stabilize and you feel like you finally get your footing, and then I get knocked off again. So right away with the twins thing, I was like, oh, okay, they're twins. I was wrong. And then I'm like, but are they real twins? Like, is there something funky going on? Is she dead and May dead and they brought her back with magic? She's not human. What's going on with Master Soul? There was a look that he gave that he knows about these twins where I'm like, I don't know if I trust him 100%. I don't know if I trust Osha 100%. Every single time where I think I kind of got a grasp on it, something challenges me. And there's something fun about that as a Star Wars fan, because we do want to know everything. We want to know all the alien species and where is this planet? Okay, and how does this relate? Here, it's just like, enjoy the ride, sit back. We're going to get thrown every time an episode comes out. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm just totally in the same place of I am eating up all of the uncertainty, and while I'm going to have some ideas and some guesses, and that's fun, I want to live in the uncertainty because I think that's what the show wants, is entertainment and frankly as philosophy, in my opinion. And I am affected that, I haven't looked at a lot of the talk, but a lot of the talk is about certainty of this canon thing is wrong. This thing is wrong. And for me, you could have your opinion. If you don't like it, of course, you don't like it and it's subjectively wrong for you. And that's always fine, of course. But in terms of sort of like give the show time to play out its mystery is really important to me. So I wanted to talk about it up front. Shall we dive into the big themes, the big ideas here? Ready, Ken?
I had a couple things I was going to say in my highlights, but
I'll keep go for it if you want.
Sure. I really love how the show understands what I think is the Jedi way and how that's going to create some discussions. I've already muted some people who don't understand The Last Jedi, but that's a good thing. And I love the kill the Jedi dream is a delicious, delicious thing. I don't even know if it's a theme. We'll discuss it. I mean, it is, but I love that there. But I did want to highlight creature design, costume design. The creature design almost seems like it's a personal attack on Tony Gilroy. I'm joking. Because Neil Scanlon worked on Andor too. But I love that this show has a full background riddles. But I want,
I really agree with you. I feel like that is the presence. Neil Scanlon's obviously amazing, but that feels like that presence of Leslie Headland, because there also has been a little bit of budget in both Mandalorian and Kenobi of like,
correct.
Hey, we had that background weirdo in Solo, so throw him in here. Yep. And this feels, from my perspective, like somebody who's grown up with Star Wars, and like they got to be weird. That not Jawa at the very beginning, with the weird orange bubble eyes and like
I want that figure.
It was that tip over into extra weirdness and fantasy that gave, I think, both Jen and I the feelings that we were talking about of like the weirdness and the creepiness and the spectacular. It's back.
And I don't mean that to be super snarky, but that's still one of my biggest problems with Andor is all those government officials, and not one of them has gills. I want to see more of that. But
government gills.
Government gills, not to undercut Andor show. Absolutely love people. No one believes me when I say that, but I like to poke that bear. But I've never watched the TV show The Bear. But anyways, that's that. I have a lot of Team Yord talk because I'm Team Yord with an asterisk. I think both of you are, and I think that's big theme stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely the love Yord. Well, to get started on our theme question, because you brought it up, Ken, I wanna throw this out. I think there's so many things to talk about, so many different ways to approach it, and so anxious to hear what you both think. But I do kind of feel like Leslie Headland said in all the interviews that this is about the Sith perspective, and I think we're waiting to see how that plays out. I feel like the way that Sith perspective is playing out is that there are so many different thematic ideas, but when I started listing them all out for myself, all of them went back to the idea of what it means to be a Jedi. That the Jedi have a sort of list of concerns, a list of ideas of how to handle the world, how to handle their own emotions, their own problems. And the Sith perspective in this show so far is poking and pushing at every one of them. The idea of, raising the question of, can the Acolyte kill the dream, and Acolyte kills the dream. It feels to me like the overall theme is, can the Jedi's worldview be destroyed by the point of view of anger, hatred, choosing not to let go of trauma? And so almost all of the thematic ideas to me are familiar in a great way because they are pushing on all those Jedi buttons. How do you feel about that, Ken, in terms of the question of what it means to be a Jedi being a sort of an umbrella that affects everything?
Yeah, because I went with clearly Leslie Headland and her writing staff listened to ForceCenter scene-by-scene breakdown of Dex's Diner. I'm kidding. But I really do think this is about knowledge and wisdom, which does tie directly to what does it mean to be a Jedi? How can you be a Jedi? How are you a Jedi? And how you talk about the Sith perspective. I still think we're waiting for that, but in the sense of we're seeing the debates, the internal struggles, the structures that can be broken apart and maybe even analyzed to death without a weapon, and how that is about, see, it's all wrong. See, they're doing this. There's a lot of great lines about that seep through, so that when the Sith perspective becomes really clear and the dream is destroyed, especially in Phantom Menace, we're getting there in a wonderful way. That's one of the things I just absolutely love about the show, and how the idea of knowledge versus wisdom. I know we talk about it a lot, but I had this conversation recently in real life. That is, to me, one of the most important episodes we've done on ForceCenter, and one of the most important scenes in the prequels, because it literally is the intersection of the things that end up destroying the Jedi Order. It's really what it's about, as well as comfort of a diner. And I'm waiting for the diner in this. But anyways, yes. So answer your question. Yes, I do think it's a giant, wonderful umbrella.
Yeah, and we reference that Dexter scene in that particular episode a lot, and specifically, a very quick version of it is, in analysis of Attack the Clones, to me, is Padme is correct about everything, out of intelligence, out of intuition, and the Jedi keep shutting her down, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Mace Windu, about what things are known, what things are impossible, and that theme is really made explicit in the diner scene when Obi-Wan has been frustrated by analysis droids, by Jocasta Nu insisting that she knows everything, and he goes to this person who is coded as of the world, of wisdom, not necessarily knowledge, not the facts that exist, but rather how you interpret the facts. And that is the key to beginning to unlock the mystery of what is actually going on, which would have been unlocked if anybody had listened to Padme in the first 5 minutes of the film. So that's what we're talking about with the Dex's Diner stuff. Jennifer, how do you feel about the overall idea of a lot of the themes applying to the question of what it takes to be a Jedi and their fallibility and all that?
I think it's interesting that especially in the second episode where Master Soul wants to go, he wants to take action, and Vernestra, is that right? Vernestra Rowe is like, you got to come back and we need to talk about it. We need to decide as a committee, talk. No action. Everything has to be it's like the system is rigid. It is basically going to start failing the people that it's designed to protect. And what might be appealing as the Sith would be the focus on the individual, of doing things, of taking matters into your own hands, as opposed to the bureaucracy of the Jedi, the red tape of the Jedi, their rules versus improvisation, which is, we see in that moment, Master Soul wants to improvise. He wants to do what's necessary in that moment. And the Jedi are like, no, we have our rules of how things are done. We need to do it this way. So I'm already going towards the side of the dark side, and I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to understand because I was really frustrated, and even her tone, which I thought was so well delivered, I just was so annoyed. I'm like, ah, and that's what I love about this show. I'm annoyed with the characters that we always have associated as heroes. I'm kind of annoyed with everyone, and I love it. That's real life. That's complex. That's complexity.
Yeah. I think we're going to get deeper into it, but I think it's already there with the Sith thing, where the Sith are, in the Darksiders, are excellent at pointing out the Jedi's flaws. But the Sith don't actually execute the superior alternative. They just point out the flaw and then act in an entirely selfish way. It is individuals first, and only individuals, and manipulation of individuals. So this is the great game of this is, I always talk about the Justice for the Jedi that came up a lot when Ken and I were doing the Clone Wars report, which is that, yes, they make mistakes, but those mistakes are made out of this desperation to do the right thing. And this show, we're watching all these Jedi trying in their own way to do the right thing. And we get to evaluate, are they failing? Are they succeeding? Who is right? I think Vernestra is being put across to us as a character who has lived through a lot of horrible bleep for over 100 years. And she is trying not to repeat mistakes by being slow and analytical. And in this moment, it's just fist-shakingly frustrating because, like, go rescue the Wookiee, right? Live in the moment with kind, compassionate Master Soul. But I wonder if we're going to swing around to getting in this show some perspective of why Vernestra's like, let's be cautious because we've rushed in and made mistakes before. And this is exactly the kind of, Justice for the Jedi. They're trying to take the high road. When do they fail? That I love about this show. I think one of the big ideas that I think is really crystal clear that I'd love to talk about early on is just the real big picture idea of duality. Of, it's extremely clear, and this is, a show about what appear to be twins. There is duality in the titles, that they are a dark thing / a light thing, in that order, both of them: lost and then found, revenge and then justice. The wonderful Osha May poem, "You're with me, I'm with you, always one, but born as two. As above sits the star and below lies the sea. I give you you, and you give me me." There's some great imagery of duality just in terms of how we perceive the Force, that Soul is trying to teach this peaceful but powerful and dangerous image of the ocean. And that kid's like, I see fire. There's that contrast between ocean and fire, both being sources of power that can bring life or death. Neither of them coded necessarily as just life or death, but that contrast between nature, obviously the light, dark side. There's so much in this that sort of reframed that classic Star Wars Luke versus Darth Vader. It's the dark and the light, but also added more complexity to the duality. Ken, how did you feel what the show was doing was sort of honoring the history of Star Wars' emphasis on duality, but also doing something different with it?
Yeah, and it's all tying into the mystery. That poem you're talking about, I think I've already seen being used as clues that we got even something more going on than we think, that their connection is either understood between the two of them or maybe not. There's some moments that I think, that seem read sincere of May not knowing Osha's alive, blah, 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 all that stuff. But, and to your question, yeah, that Soul's lesson is something put down as one of my favorite moments to discuss even later if we want. But I think that lesson is really key and connects the duality of both fire and water can consume you if you're caught in them, and that is about the light, that is about the dark, and meaning the light's not you're not going to be consumed in goodness and joy and empathy and die from too much empathy, but I think what you're seeing
or did Indara die of too much empathy? Not as in it's a bad thing, but it was used against her as a weakness and it killed her.
Here's where I'm going to go. Yord's right, y'all. Yord's right every step of the way. The problem is, and I've said this before here, Charmaine DeGraat is on the House of the Dragon writing team, so it gives me Tywin Lannister and Stannis Baratheon are right. They're right in the world. The problem is you need to question that world. And if you followed Yord's plans, you'd probably be okay, but we need to question it. We need to question it because you can be consumed by the water as you can be consumed by the fire. And that's where I'm excited about this series, where we always talk about, the force is balance, meaning someone stands before the darkness if someone tries to push it over. And I think Indara dies because of that. And that's part of what you have to accept and let go. And this is a show that deals very much in grief. But what I say, I love Yor because I'm frustrated with him too. That's why when I say Yord is right, it doesn't mean that he's right within the game, but we're questioning the game. And the game, Jen, you said something. I love what you said, but we're seeing a Jedi Order, and their dream could eventually hurt people. It could eventually destroy, or could eventually lead to the fall of the galaxy that will overtake everyone. And that's what I love where the show is going and what it's analyzing.
Mm-hmm. Jen, we'll go all in on Yord in a moment here, but Jen, I wanted to ask you just about the general sort of idea of duality. Has that been an important theme to Star Wars to you over the years? Do you feel it in this show?
Oh yeah, 100%. Obviously, Rey and Kylo Ren. But in this show, it's different because I think that it actually subverts it of what we think is good and bad. So basically, we're looking at this from the lens of trauma. May and Osha's trauma, which then changes everything. If we look at lost and found, being lost is actually a good thing for her, perhaps. Being found ends up being kind of bad. Revenge is good because the justice is not working. And so I feel like or the justice is not, it's not enough, right? It's because we don't know what has happened or why.
It doesn't feel like enough, yeah.
Right. What Tubin, is that correct? Torben. Why Torben took the potion? Why did he do that? What is in this past? What have the Jedi been doing? Where have they failed people already, and failed specifically these twins? So yeah, I feel like, again, even with like that camera angle which you had mentioned before, Joseph, where she like that Hitchcock kind of tilt. I feel like that's what they're doing with the duality. It's like up and down, but in this world, down is up. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely wanting us to question some of those things. I think I can't go so far as to say revenge is good for myself.
But I think that it's. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No,
from a personal perspective, somebody who has experienced some specific traumas, I won't get into, but there is something appealing about revenge when justice takes a long time. And so there is a human element that is really, I think, is going to play out in this series, where we're going to understand why she wanted to get this revenge and why that would be appealing. Because sometimes justice, it can be enacted, but it doesn't feel like true justice for the person that survived this trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just think I'd phrase it differently for myself, in that I feel like this show is really dealing with how do people respond to trauma. And these episodes made me think about, like, is this the core difference between the light and the dark side? Because, yeah, clearly something very horrible happened. Did Osha do it? Did May do it? There's all the kind of like the mystery of what really happened. Did Torben do something even worse that Soul doesn't even know about? There's lots of mysteries, but clearly something truly awful and traumatic happened that needs to be dealt with. And I think there's that big question, what you're saying of, is justice failing? Are the Jedi failing? Of whatever happened in the past does seem like it needs to be addressed. And it seems like maybe Indara is just like, fine, we don't know. Soul seems to be processing it for himself. Torben and Kelnaka seems to be like running away from it. Osha seems to be running away from it. And May, I think, is being manipulated by the dark side to never, ever leave it. Think only about the trauma. So I feel like for a lot of the characters, it's this question of course, that trauma has to be dealt with, but what's the best way going forward to deal with it? And for me, like, revenge isn't the answer, but neither is, it's fine, take a deep breath and let it go. Don't let it bother you, right? That somewhere in that slash between revenge and justice is what these characters probably need. They need a way to move on. And there's so much discussion about that, which you can get into, about holding on and letting go and who is doing that and why and when. But yeah, we were excited about this. We were talking about this in the last episode, of being able to see, really empathize with Darksiders of like, yep, I'd really want to pick up a red blade. You know, if something happened to a loved one, I would probably not be able to stick to my Jedi high ideals if I had a red blade next to me. It's an incredibly hard challenge, but I think that's the point. Is it needs to be dealt with, but can you find a way to deal with it which won't ultimately make it worse by lashing out in justice, not anger, if you can. That's my philosophy of it, and it's all a deeply personal thing. So I'm not, trying to tell anybody else how to feel. Just sharing my own feelings. So should we just get into the Yord of it all?
Let's get into Yord. Let's Yord it up.
I kind of felt like there's many different ways to go with Yord, but I kept gravitating towards like, May and Osha are fascinating and they're the central characters, and I think we're going to dive in even deeper. But these first two episodes, it almost felt like the bigger duality was Yord versus Saul for the soul of the Jedi Order. That Saul, we still don't know. He seems like he maybe hid that they were twins. He seems like he's maybe does have some stuff he hasn't processed. But on the surface, he is to me what the ideal Jedi are trying to be. He's very Qui-Gon aligned. He's very later in life Yoda. He is humble. He is fallible. He is not afraid of emotion. He can care about people and still make good choices. I love that he's teaching the younglings, don't trust your eyes. They can lie to you. And then later in the episode, he's like, no, May's dead. I saw her die. And you're like, ah. But then by the second episode, he sees something. He gets more information that challenges what his eyes saw. This concrete, of course, May is dead. I saw it, period. It's true. And he goes with the uncertainty of the ocean and says, I learned something new. Now I'm going to say presumed dead. I'm not going to be rigid and locked to my eyes saw it and it's true. So to me, Soul is still up in the air of he might have some shady stuff going on. But in these episodes, he's to me what a Jedi should be. Whereas Yord is representing a lot of the things that the Jedi Order come to be. He is arrogant. He's rigid. He's quick to action. Emotions are something to be afraid of. I love that in that first scene with him and May. He clearly has an attachment to May, and she asks him for his human opinion, and he says, it doesn't matter what I think. And I think it's that kind of coldness we see the Jedi react to Anakin with in The Phantom Menace, which we all criticize of, like, he's a child who just lost his mom. Be a little bit more Soul and a little less Yord. So to me, I think that there is this duality in terms of what the future of the Jedi Order is going to be. And I think Yord wins is where we're heading. Ken, what are your Yord Saul duality thoughts?
Charlie Barnett so far to me is the best actor in the series. I think he's doing such a good job. I think he stole the show in a way. And again, I don't know if that's a good thing. Because I think he's representing exactly what you're talking about. And what you just said there scared, Yord's way wins. Ooh. Yeah, that's an indictment, isn't it? That's something to look at. And when I say Yord's right, y'all, what I mean is you've set up this system. He's following the rules, and that's the best way to do it at the time. But it's Saul going, you know what? Maybe we need to analyze this. I'm hiding something. They're all hiding something. I've seen this show referred to as Frozen and Kill Bill type thing. I could see the connections. We got a Kill Bill thing going on. Right? We all were there.
That was Leslie Helen's pitch, right? It's Frozen meets Kill Bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, it was said by so many people too. But it's just like, so we're seeing it lay out. They all were there. They all know what they did. They all did. And you're right, Jen. I don't trust all of them. Just Saul has great warmth to him. He's got some of my favorite scenes. But going back to the Yord of it all, again, it's Sicchiati Monday. But it's like, yeah, if you were to put handcuffs on her, you should put handcuffs on her. Procedure dictates you put handcuffs on her. Don't...
Is Yord bringing out the old security guard in you? Are you having like
first of all, let me tell you. Yeah, let me tell you how many times people in handcuffs have nearly killed people outside of handcuffs. So that's always my thing too. They were unarmed. The human body is a weapon. But the point is, I made a list of he's only seeing, he's not feeling. He didn't. That's not just him too. Jackie has some lines too, but I didn't know she had a twin. It wasn't in the files. Now I'm having flashbacks to Jocasta do, like I said. Yord going, there's no way you're going to survive this. He's not wrong, right? He's seeing all the facts, but all the facts are don't necessarily lead to the truth, and that's why I love that. Like you said, it's Soul versus Yord, the young up and comer. I love some of the moments. This is why I think Charlie Barnett's doing the best so far. And by the way, I don't give a damn if he knows who Luke or Anakin are. All right, I don't care. Alec Guinness doesn't even know what's. Oh, have you? God bless you. God bless you if you have not been part of that mess. No. He in a press junket has twice said, "Oh, it's like when Anakin blew up the Death Star," and it's brought out the worst in even some former colleagues of mine who are useless, anyways. But Alec Guinness doesn't even know it's called Star Wars. Everyone calm down.
Alec Guinness was out there giving kids money to stop watching Star Wars. So, it's okay. It's that's a true thing from his autobiography.
Yeah. Ask Harrison Ford about what planet were you on when you did that. It's silliness.
I don't know.
I don't know about that stupid stuff, kid. But so that's why I think it made me more angry. I'm angry, and there's a tweet that went out last night by a former colleague that next time I see him, we might deal with it. I just
with revenge or justice.
Exactly. Yeah.
as my fiance will point out, the sentence ends at revenge. But all that to say, he's got some of the best acting in the series. And I've been hypercritical of Star Wars actors in this modern era. There's some things I think even you and I have some acting issues more than other people. He's killing it. He's killing it because when the camera's on him, but the characters aren't looking at him, the fake, let me stand up straight. I'm trying to be a Jedi. I see so many comics, and I struggle with this too. I'm trying to be a comic as opposed to be myself in this arena. Saul is trying to find with all he can, with all this pain and suffering that is inside him, and these memories he's trying to learn from and not hold on to. I think that was a great moment. He's trying to be himself. Yord is trying to be a Jedi, and there's a difference there. And I love how it's playing out with Yord. So I don't want anyone to think I'm defending Yord when I say he's right. I'm just saying at one point he's going to be like, but the rules dictate this. If you didn't want me to do that, why make those rules or why make these procedures? Why do I have so now you're a Jedi pamphlet? If life is lived off the page, why did you give me the page? And I think that's going to be fun to analyze for me. That's my
because to me, and I think where Saul is coming from in his lesson to the kids is the final in best wisdom is question your wisdom, which doesn't mean throw it out. It means you got to be open to questioning it.
Yes.
And that is not where Yord is at. I so agree with you that Saul is being defined by his actions. I love the detail that he was shy when he was young. In contrast to Yord doing some posing. Jen, I really want to get you in on the Yord Saul thoughts. How do you feel about those two Jedi?
Oh, Yord. It reminds me.
Oh, Yord.
It reminds me of like the assistant managers that I've had at the mall, where it's like, this is what they said. This is what corporate says. And this is what we have to do. It's like, okay, I know that those are the rules, but in this instance, the customer's really unhappy. Can we please make an exception? No. And also the detail about, what was it? OSHA was like, wow, I'm surprised to see you as a Jedi Knight. He's like, yeah, basically he's kind of just hung in there. And because he's hung in there, they've rewarded him just being there. Right. We all know people like that. He just, the Frozen of it all. He does remind me of I don't know if he's the prince. He's the bad guy. He's the bad guy in Frozen, who's all kind of pompous and chest out. In this case, shirt off, steaming his robe.
I'd have that chest out too. If I'd be steaming my robe all day if that's how I look. So
I love it. It was very much like a Kylo Ren reveal. I was like, all right, Star Wars, get steamy. No pun intended. So I think that he is fun. He's the fun part of it. Master Soul for me is the heart, and I'm getting drawn in. But again, I don't know if I can trust him. And just fantastic performances all around. Oh my gosh!
I think Soul is going to be revealed to have made some mistake.
Yeah.
And maybe has some part of his own teaching that he's not able to follow. That there's something in his past that he has not let go of. I do think that we're going to find a flaw in Soul. But to me, that's what so much of our middle-aged Jedi storytelling has been about with Obi-Wan, with Luke, of one flaw doesn't define you. What defines Soul is he is trying his best to move past the trauma and make better choices. And if whenever whatever flaw that he's got comes flying in his face, how he responds to it is what's going to define him. Whether he accepts, yep, you're right, I hid that they were twins because of this, and this, and if he deals with it, that's his test. If he doesn't, then he's got some problems, I think. Ken, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No. This is great. I love this. This has been fun. A lot of fun. Jen, you say you don't trust Saul. I wanted to ask about that because going into this series, secretly, I don't even think I said it much on it. I was like, well, clearly Saul's a Sith, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I still think Chimere might be the Sith. I think
Chimere is either the Sith or a red herring for early on because it's right there.
Yeah, right.
It's but when you say I want to know more, and a wonderful, it's a wonderful statement to say I don't trust Saul, because I really love what Joseph's saying. I put this idea of how do you forgive yourself, and I think I had all of Saul moments in that. How he considers this his failure, and he's really keen on about accepting what you've lost, which is hard, and that's that slash we're all trying to live in between lost and found and revenge and justice. And, so I just it's not a pushback question. It's I'd almost like to know more about your Saul distrust. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it was just really specifically in a couple looks where there was I don't want to say a darkness, but a darkness over the choices that he made, and not in the way that it's like I feel bad. It's I effed up, and this is going to haunt me. And I think it's going to be significant. And I'm trying to figure out what the mystery is, and it's got to be really bad, right? I mean, my mind can go to some bad places, but I'm assuming it's related to taking the children and stuff like that. Maybe there's some issues there, but he did something, or he didn't speak up when he needed to. That's another thing. I don't know. There just was that one look in particular where I was like,
yeah,
I don't know if I do trust him 100%.
Yeah. Could he have saved them both? But May was truly a threat, and he let her, die, because he is very focused on, I couldn't save her as a child, let me save her now, which I think is wonderful and noble in this moment. But I love the mysteries, and I love not knowing, it's great.
Yeah, no, especially because, May started a fire. We got that young girl talking about, I'm picturing a fire. I just love this image of fire and consuming it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Asked and answered. Thank you.
I think one other big theme that I think really applies to Yord and Soul's perspective, all these dualities that we were talking about, holding on versus letting go, and sort of rigidity versus being a little bit more flowing. There was a lot of faith versus fear, and I think where I think that maybe in some situations Yord is he might be right, and he's following all the rules, and the rules are there for a reason. I think to me the chink in his armor, and why I don't think he's a Sith or anything, but why I'm hard on him, I love to hate him as a character, and think he's dangerous for the Jedi Order, is because his decisions seem to be coming from fear. I think that all that posturing when he goes to see Osha, like sitting on the bed so his cape is displayed in the most elegant way possible. Right. You're right. That's about posing, and that's about somebody will see my weakness, so I need to put on this armor to not show my weakness. We get he's listing all the things that could go wrong. We get that direct line from Soul of saying, Yord, don't let fear affect your judgment. I think. He apologizes that he failed, that he should have brought in Osha himself. All that stuff is coming from fear of he wants to be perfect. He wants to be a perfect Jedi. It's this rigidity of following the rules, not because he's examined them and he believes in them. It's like this, I can build this perfect structure so I never have to doubt. If I just follow all the rules, I'll never fail, and I never have to face the fear of failing. He's projecting fear in so many of his actions, right down to Soul in these first 2 episodes never ignites his blade. And Yord's like, I think I saw a shadow. How quick he is to ignite his blade is very fearful to me. And then just in contrast with Soul, very quickly, so much of what he talks about faith a lot. Have faith in May, have faith in me. And I think faith in this context is a different way to talk about hope. If fear is the assumption that things will turn out poorly, hope is the possibility that they could turn out well. And I feel like what Soul keeps doing is saying, like, let's believe that maybe I could get through to May and I could save her. Let's trust me that I'm going to do the right thing with May. Combining that with what he tells the kids about the ocean. He says, gives yourself over to its weight, its stillness, its uncertainty. And that some of that's talk can be like, yeah, Jedi philosophy stuff, so it goes past you real quick. But specifically describing the ocean as something that, like, sometimes it's just going to throw you this way, and you got to be open to that. Is so the opposite of Yord's, I have memorized the rule book and I will cling to it for my safety. You know, there's no ocean of uncertainty in Yord's rule book. That faith versus fear thing makes a big difference to me in analyzing the characters. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Dangerously real world. Permission to, I've said too much of the real world today. No, this is an analysis of, let's just say, a particular group or organizations that we all have to interact with and do important things that has now become overrun by fear and posturing. I'm so happy you said that. That's why I love those Yord moments. I almost called them Nord or Noid, like the Domino's Pizza Noid. Yord.
That's a character that embraces chaos.
Avoid that Noid. But exactly what you're talking about Saul not needing to go to his hip to pull his weapon. And so many of others and so many younger Jedi, that I think Yord represents are doing what the rule book might say. Policy will protect you. But it is based out of fear. It is based out of a lack of faith in the system, and it shows a lack of connection to the world around you. Our buddy Alex Damon, I'm sure others, and I don't want to ever take credit from anyone else, including you two on the show here. But Alex, I love Alex pointing out that, hey, the Jedi Temple is built above course in a little bit, and when we see it in 100 years, it's going to be a little bit more sucked in by the planet, a little bit more sucked in by the Republic, a little more intertwined. I think that's very key. And as you start to see the destruction of the Jedi, you've got Saul saying some truths, man. He's saying you're not connecting with those around you, the galaxy that you're supposed to be. We already know the High Republic era, some of the problems. Also reading, I'm the one that Jonathan Jackson Miller book, The Living Force. I've fallen off because of life, but it's already in that, like, man, remember when we used to walk on the actual surface of the galaxy that we are here to protect or be part of? And you got Blue Blade Jedi, I don't know his name yet, saying, "Oh, we didn't think our little break-in would bring in, get anyone's attention at Coruscant. That's a class warfare thing going on within the Jedi Order." And all this to say, and I'm trying to avoid too real world stuff here, but I've had these conversations with friends of mine in a certain line of work I'm connected with in the past, who are like, we've seen so many of the younger generation fail to connect with those they're supposed to serve and protect. They don't know how to connect with them, so out of fear they go to their hip. They do it time and time again. And now there's been an erosion of that institution that I still think has a purpose, personally think it has a purpose in the greater scheme of the world. But it's been eroded, and Yord can't see it. And that's why when I say Yord's right, he's going, again, you taught me this. But he can't see that it's all out of fear. Also, I really love this show because it's inspired so many conversations here in an hour that my first viewing didn't contain. I love discussing this with you.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I think that you can retreat into Star Wars for fantasy, but it is also dealing with not just the question of what should these space wizards Jedi be. It's asking us who we want to be as individuals, as a society, and do we want to always go to the weapon at our hip, or do we want to attempt to de-escalate? And Soul is de-escalation, and Yord is my safety is my weapon. It's at my hip, and it's also going internal. I need to be the best Jedi. I passed the trials 2 years ago, and I already have a Padawan, as you pointed out, Jen. That energy from him of, like, I have been made the highest of the assistant managers at Cinnabon. That energy is very me. Jen, how do you feel about this idea of faith versus fear and how it's animating some of these choices.
Yeah, well, I think that fear leads to the dark side, which will be interesting. Again, another subversion. But I love your observation, Ken. That is really a great parallel to our world. And we see and that's why I love Master Soul, is that he wants to talk. He wants to try and figure out another way, right? He wants to assess the situation and determine what's best. Whereas Yord is because he's not secure in his ability. He's not secure in himself, really.
He can't talk. He can't talk himself out of conflict that sometimes finds you.
Yes.
Sometimes it finds you.
Yes.
But do you have the ability to, much like Indara, I love that moment early on. A Jedi only pulls their blade when they're prepared to kill. You're right. I don't want to kill you.
Which is why Saul is not taking it out. He's still at the end there offering May his hand.
Right.
In terms of this kind of faith-fear thing, I did want to ask you about May's inability, or Osha's inability to use the Force when the prison ship is crashing. We don't yet know exactly why she chose to leave the Order. We do know that it was an issue between her and Saul, that she struggled to let go of she blamed her sister for the death of her family. Even though her sister was dead, and struggled with the anger of that, and struggled with letting it go, seems to be the issue between them, and that Soul couldn't get through to her to let it go. So maybe that's why she's walked away. We also have a little bit of discussion of, well, she hasn't trained in a while, but I thought it was really significant. And another great subversion moment, as you said, Jen, of that shot of the Force sensitive straining with their hand. Like we've seen that recently with Sabine, with Kenobi, when he catches Leia, it almost always ends in, and shunk. The thing flies to them, and it doesn't. It ends in a sigh of frustration. I'm so curious if we're going to learn more about the character, but where's that coming from? Is that a lack of faith in her abilities? Is it fear of her power, that she knows how dangerous the ocean can be? She knows how dangerous the fire can be, and she is afraid to touch the Force because what is she going to do with it? Later in the episode when she wants to, or in the second episode when she wants to confront May, she says, "I want justice," and Soul says, "You want revenge." So why, Jen, do you think Osha is not able to tap into that Force to get the pip droid into her hand?
I really like that idea that she's afraid of her own powers. That is very Elsa, that she has somehow caused destruction in the past. Something bad happened as a result of her powers, where now she does not really want to use it, and that connection is broken. That is interesting, because obviously the obvious answer is she just hasn't been training, and she's it's like a muscle, right? She's in the Force, like a muscle. She hasn't worked out in a while. But no, and that goes into also the twin of it all. So that's really fascinausing. I'm going to be looking for clues in future episodes.
How did you feel about Osha's inability to use the Force, Ken? I know. Are they one in the same?
Sorry, my fidget spinner today is a paperclip. I apologize, everybody. Or a clothesline clip. Yord would tell you it is because she hasn't trained in a while. She hasn't trained in 6 years. Duh. But I like the idea. Sphere. I think one of the great mysteries of the show is what exactly caused her to leave, because the numbers are 16 years ago this happens, right? She gets in the Order, but 6 years ago she leaves the Jedi Order. Indara had some thoughts on it there too, right? And all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things at play that are really interesting to me, but the idea that especially if what has happened in her life and this trauma is leading her to those moments you were talking about, Jen, of well, revenge would be nice, but I think I know that that's not right. And so I do have a power that would make revenge really easy. And if there's some kind of emotional scar that's keeping it from connecting at this point, I think, again, like I said, that's one of the mysteries I enjoy. And, I'm just glad Pip got saved, all right?
Yeah, that's the most important thing in this entire thing. Pip's pretty damn great. We talked a lot about the contrast between Yord and Saul, a little bit of what's going on with Verdestra, of maybe representing that older, I have been through this all a million times, so I'm playing it super safe and making you come home instead of rescuing Cal Naka. I thought Jecki was really interesting, because Jecki seemed like, in some ways, like she's the true future of the Order. She's a Padawan right now, and she seemed like this hinge between Yord and Saul, where she is soaking up the rules like you're talking about, Ken. She is, calling, she's chiding Saul for having a hollow. And the way she delivers it, it's really like, I'm repeating the rule. This pastime encourages sentimentality and nostalgia. I've memorized this from the rule book, right? That she is kind of rigidly asking him for permission to speak freely. And he says, just speak freely, for God's sakes. She rigidly calls Osha the Padawan, and Saul corrects her to Osha. So there's all this stuff where Jecki is kind of coded as rigid, like Yord. But then there's also like, she is also thinking inventive and intuitive and comes up with the wiser, de-escalating plan. She's got a sense of humor, and she kind of smiles and is human with Osha, then kind of catches herself and gets rigid again. So I feel like she's coded as stuck in between, trying to figure out the choice to make. Jen, how do you feel about Jecki?
I must admit, I found her to be a little bit annoying. No shade. I love Daphne Keene, but that's actually a testament to her great performance, is because it felt so real. I'm back in school, and I can already see that person that really knows everything, right? They are on their game, and it's so frustrating because it comes so effortlessly. But also, she's obviously studied a lot as well. But she is able to kind of like improvise and assess. And so I can imagine being a little annoyed with her if she was in my class. But I like it. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun character.
How did you feel about Jecki, Ken?
I'm not annoyed. I could see where she could accidentally become a Tracy Flick from the book and movie Election.
Yes.
I could see that. But I see hope for Jecki. I see a lot of hope for the future of the Order, of someone who does know, hey, Section 2, Line 3 says da-da-da-da-da-da. But eventually she you can see her starting to overcome that. Even the interplay of permission to speak freely and Saul on the second time, I think, is like, you just speak, like we don't have to play that game. But we can move past it. And yeah, she's definitely a little snarky. She's got some funny moments. Totally get it. If that's what's rubbing up against you, Jed. And I mean that in a good character way, because I agree with you. Daphne Keene did a great job. But yeah, even the Yord moment, it's like, or we could skip this doofus's stuff. But what's going on there is preserving it. It's getting into it's actually solving the situation versus, this would be an end, but it wouldn't be the complete picture. So how about we move past that and maybe see, its knowledge, wisdom, and Jecki's got a lot of wisdom shining through, and that's hope for the Order. Though, we know where that ends. As you said, Yord wins, Joseph. Yord wins. No, but Jecki represents what can still be there.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Soul is still out there teaching, even in the middle of this difficult mission. His trauma, he's asking for suggestions. And my mind went back to doing improv. And when you're doing improv with great people, they're all supporting you, and they're all focusing on the big picture of, let's all listen together, and where is this scene going? What's the big picture? And that's the idea that Jecki comes up with. Jecki's like, I think I've figured out the game of this scene and how we can figure it out. And then you work with improv people who are like, how can I be the biggest, the loudest, the funniest, the most outrageous, in the way that Yord's like, my plan involves me going in and being the coolest and the toughest. Is so, once again, me-centered. So I really have hope for Jecki, because she seems like she has that annoying, pedantic side, and she has this flowing, intuitive side, and I'm hoping the flowing, intuitive side wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With her,
Ken, other specific ideas that you wanted to discuss on your list of themes and ideas?
How do you heal from trauma is something that's going to be at play the entire time. We kind of discussed that enough already. I think the biggest thing for me, I can go anywhere you all want to know, but this whole killing the dream idea and some of the lines of everyone has a weakness, peace is a lie, and I know that's from the Sith code, and get it tattooed on your back there if you want to be a Sith or whatever. And this idea of Torben thinks he found peace, all these things that are from a Sith perspective that have grains of harsh truth, but aren't necessarily correct, and how that idea. I'm still so curious about how much we're going to get from this villain, the red-bladed villain, who it is. Is there another one? Are there two? And we're seeing an Acolyte plus two others. We'll see. We'll find out. But you can't kill them with a weapon. You just got to take away their dream. It made me think of the memes. You know, this is the future liberals want. This is like take that away from them because it's a lie. They think it's good, but it's not. I just fascinated by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I definitely want to talk more about the whole kill them without a weapon thing because that seems to be literal of, we want you to, not rely on weapons. But it is also metaphorical of destroying their dream is what will kill them. And then it becomes literal. May has taken out 2 Jedi and the weapons she has used on them in a metaphorical way or an emotional way is empathy and guilt, in my opinion. Like Indara knows it. I love that cut when she sees like, oh, you're going to throw the knife at him and me at the same time and I have to choose. Okay, you know what I'm going to choose. You got me. You used my empathy to kill me. Congratulations. And then it does seem like Torben did something real bad, right? That he was maybe more complicit or saw some angle to this tragedy that others didn't. But also is feeling legitimately guilty for a trauma that you inflicted. Is that an awful thing? Is that it's the weaknesses of empathy and guilt. Are those weaknesses? Are those bad things? I think is a really interesting question that's being raised by the show, and that's what's killing the Jedi is what to me are sometimes good traits. Jen, how do you feel about a lot of this sort of discussion of holding on versus letting go, how the Jedi are actually dying, all that stuff?
I'm really worried about Torben because I'm like, why did he do it? How bad does it get? How far is this show going to push it to the real world? I mean, my mind can go, like I said, can go to some dark places. I don't think on Disney Plus they're going to go to those places, right? But we also have to it has to be believable. It has to be bad enough that we empathize with May and we see, oh yeah, this is why he did it. Of course he did it. He should have done it. Because what he did was unforgivable. Because there are some sins, we'll say, that are unforgivable. But again, I don't know if Disney Plus wants to go down that road. Maybe HBO or Netflix might dabble in that area more, right? But I'll say this. As of now, I'm not really a fan of any of the Jedi. I don't really like any of them, except for Master Soul. I'm kind of annoyed with all of them. I'm frustrated with them already. I loved Chimera. I was like, oh, he and I would be buddies. He's like the hipster friend from Silver Lake I want to hang out with. A fan of him.
Drunk.
Yeah. I love May. Obviously, I do love Osha as well. But Mother Anasea, who's going to be coming, I am ready to join her coven. Let's go. Let's go to the dark side, baby.
I love to dislike Chimera. I'm not going to sign up to his team, but I love him as a character because exactly that. I think maybe he's the Sith, maybe he's a red herring because he does seem obvious. But what I love about his obviousness is we've seen Palpatine slowly manipulate Anakin from a position of power and as a mentor. We've Palpatine via Snoke whispering in Ben Solo's mind. This is different. This is reverse Yoda. This is pretending to be low status to test your apprentice. It's exactly what Yoda does to Luke when he first gets to Dagobah. Luke thinks everything's about war and big warriors, so I'm going to show him somebody who is silly and fun and less than, and see his baggage, and flip it on him. And I feel like what's so great about those Chimera scenes is he's telling her everything the Master wants. He's reinforcing her fear of the Master, her need to please the Master, her fear of failure, all these things, while coming off is a drunken Silver Lake hipster who would be fun to hang out with.
But he has those flashes of like darkness and scariness where I'm like, oh, do not cross him, right?
But he's totally got the Sith pamphlet, with the pieces lie. And I love what you're saying about being frustrated with the Jedi, because I think all of this is centering on how do they all respond to the trauma. Osha has tried to move on, even if she's like, it so obsesses me, I can't do the Jedi Order, I'll go find a different life. And she seems pretty happy in it. You know,
Yeah.
Soul is really trying. He's looking back at the past and he's thinking about it and trying to move forward and teach the next generation. Everyone else we've met is Torben, I think, by meditating on it, is just kind of running away from it, right? He's just sitting there getting old and weird, and using the Force to not pee. I'm fascinated by his literal
10 years, man.
10 years. Amazing. The uncertainty, the power. Inara, we don't spend enough time with, but it seems like she's floating above it all. You know, of the way of the you. So we have all the Jedi who are struggling to deal with the past, but then I think the Sith are not offering a better alternative. Their alternative is never move on from it. Sit in the pain and trauma forever. The fact that that May has her mantra that begins with "We have unfinished business." I'm sure the Sith lie is once you kill these 4 Jedi, then you'll know peace. No Sith wants their apprentice to know peace. It's not an honest way of dealing with it. They want to keep Kamir and the Master, or maybe they're one and the same, but they want to keep May away from peace forever. They want her to always have unfinished business and stay angry. I love that contrast between the Jedi, the Sith not wanting to deal with the past, just wanting to be angry about it forever, not wanting to resolve the past, and the Jedi struggling to resolve the past. Ken, how do you feel about the holding on versus letting go stuff that the show is dealing with?
Yeah, I don't hold on to anything ever. I just let it all go, and it's wonderful. No, this is maybe some of my favorite stuff of the show, and we haven't like you said up top, Joseph. It's a Sith perspective show that we're just scratching the surface on, I think, in terms of the actual perspective. Going to the Torben of it all, we got Kamir saying, everyone has a weakness, peace is a lie, and Torben thinks he found peace. He's looking for this absolution. And yes, it's time to quote Rose at the end of Titanic. We're looking for an absolution that never came. One of my favorite lines from Titanic.
I thought you were going to say Rose Tico.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Not saving what we love, not fighting what we hate. Who's doing that in this show?
Well, there's that. There's that. Yeah, but our heart will go on for Titanic. But I'm so curious about, Jen, like you have some dark thoughts on Torben. I mean, look, it's Disney Plus. Also, when I sign in, I got FX, adult mature content in front of my face now. So maybe things are changing.
Or things.
Yeah. He takes his life, right? He takes his life. So that was the absolution that he felt he needed. And this is open to interpretation. I'm just trying to read it in my mind right now. That's the absolution that he felt he needed for the guilt that he had of what happened. He took the Barash vow. He's been floating there for 10 years. Maybe I think someone comes in and gives him a haircut at least, or a trim.
Not a very good one.
Not a good one. Not a good one.
Not a complimentary one.
He got damaged, the scars to his eyes. He's done a lot, and she can't defeat him. I know. I've already seen that's great examples of martial arts films. Kind of this, part of it of the you can't destroy this kind of magical person type of vibes. I'm not an expert in that realm. Other people can comment below the actual examples, but that can't destroy him. But what can destroy him is this little vial of essentially poison that he willingly takes. That's fascinating. About this 10 years of I'm trying to find some peace and move on. I could never move on. The only thing that allows him to move on is death. Oh, that's deliciously dark, Jed. I think you're getting some of your darkness. And I don't fully understand it all. It's part of the mystery. It's part of the mystery what happened.
I think he's told the other Jedi that he's meditating to try to move on. That, the Bresh vow is supposed to be like, I need to go deal with stuff. His line is, his eyes open up and he says, I've been waiting for you.
Right.
That's not somebody who's been meditating to try to move past it. That's someone who can't forgive themselves, can't find a way to move on. And Jen, I agree with you. There are some things in life that are like, you can't make that right. That's unforgivable. How do you live with it? How do you go on? How do you be productive? How do you keep yourself from harming others? How do you maybe manage to help others? But the act is unforgivable. And it seems like whatever Torben did is to him unforgivable. And he lies. Unfortunately, I think Kamir is right on this one. The peace is a lie. Then he's lying to the other Jedi because he's sitting there waiting for me to kill him for 10 years, it would appear.
And I think it's open to interpretation too, for sure. But like, you definitely got the vibe of not what you're saying, but of like Torben and I think Indara. I personally took it as it made sense. It was May, that it wasn't like there's some room with Indara that it's Osha, but I think that you is okay. The sister survived.
That wasn't just a recognizing of a face. That was checking on the mark on her forehead.
Yes.
Oh, right.
And for Torben to be like, he wasn't like, Osha. He was like, oh, yeah, the one we really screwed over with death.
Yeah, he used her name, right? I've been waiting for you, May. Yeah.
It's
so
a
I guess
reckoning.
that one's less open to interpretation. You're right. Yes, a
reckoning.
reckoning.
It is a reckoning.
Great.
Yeah. They knew that whatever they did was so bad. And obviously, let's just call it out, like some sort of abuse or something is where I go to. It is so bad that they know she's going to come back. And the choices that they made are literally going to kind of come back to haunt them. And so, that's why I'm like, where are we going with this show? Where are we going?
The first episode could have ended with Michael Madsen going, she wanted her revenge. And she deserved it.
Yeah. One of the details that I saw when I watched this morning with the subtitles is when the fire is happening on the ship and Osha is transfixed. We get the flashes of dialogue back in the day. And I believe it's May saying something about, you can't leave. I won't let you leave. So I think there's, this definitely something happened with the kids. Whatever the conflict was with the cult, maybe the cult was doing something awful and the Jedi needed to take an action to stop them, but somehow these children got caught up in a way that the children should not have. I agree with you, Jen. There's something like awful toward children. And it is something about, separating the children in some way. If there was already a choice to take Osha and not May, and whatever May did with fire is a response to this separation of them, who knows? It's fun to speculate.
Wow. Yeah. God, you're said to be. Yeah. God,
go.
this is
That's it. She caused the fire because she was upset. Maybe. Yeah. I see.
And did just May start it, or did they start it together?
Well, Joseph, we didn't start the fire. It was always garden since the world was turned. But because this is a clarification point. Yeah, clarification point for me. Almost something we would do normally off air. I interpret it as Osha was taken into the Jedi Order after this, correct? Or is there still room for, hey, we're trying to recruit this one, and there's the May's like, no, don't go, or is there something in this coven, and I'm definitely not saying any witches are automatically in a cult. Don't anyone get that idea? Someone starts screaming through the walls here in my own house. But I think of the Hold Steady song, Maggie, we're looking for our son. There was power in their numbers. There was silver in their holsters, and it's a song, a story song about a cult. And whether the son was, now the mystery of what happened just exploded in 12 different directions for me.
Yeah,
I think
the way it's being presented, at least to me, between Osha and Sol, is May started the fire, May killed everyone, then Sol took Osha in. But I think the fact that Sol left it out of the file that they were twins.
Yeah.
That there is something there in the sequence of events going on. And I still think there is still some possibility that the whole twin thing is not, as you were saying at the very top of our show, Jen, not as clear cut as it is. That rhyme is so beautiful of like, to me, there's even a part of like, Osha is explicitly saying to Sol, I can't let go of the anger at what she did, at what May did. But are they so connected? Are they two who are, or one who was born as two? Are they so connected that Osha feels what May did? And in a way, this is like anger and hatred of herself. The way the show is going to play with duality and the complexity of what happened is really enticing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That went places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know where we're going next.
Maybe we should just let's just do a reaction channel. And video. We're done. We're good.
Yeah.
As opposed to having some real world complications here.
Seriously.
No, it does set off that stuff. One other idea I wanted touch on quickly is I think there is an active effort on the Darksiders to kill the Jedi dream, obviously, but to subvert the Jedi desire. The Jedi want to see the lightsabers as shields, that they are ignited when someone else is in danger, to stand between a threat and an innocent person. That's the Jedi's ideal. That is thrown in Dara's face with that great line of, a Jedi doesn't pull her weapon unless prepared to kill. Which made me just think about like that there's a desire maybe with this, you got to kill them without a weapon. And yet what we're seeing again and again is May is trying to grab the Jedi's lightsaber. So I think there's a really interesting discussion of, and I've already seen people discussing this, haven't looked much, but what is May doing? Does May have the assignment from her master to kill them literally just with the Force and her hands? And she is giving into fear and trying to get the lightsaber weapon? Or is this kill them without a weapon? Is the master's assignment actually, you don't bring a weapon, you take their weapons, which they think are shields, and you show them that they are symbols of death. You kill them with their weapon they claim is a shield, and show them it's death. Jen, why do you think May is grabbing for the lightsabers?
I think in that moment it's just an impulse or fear, is what I would think. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think I jotted it down too as two of my little favorite moments, because it was so wonderfully done and clear, of just this, especially in Dars, it was like, no, you don't.
Nope.
So I took it as a little bit of reaching for something she can't be, reaching for something she can't obtain, something she doesn't deserve, but also the emphasis on, no, you don't kill them with a weapon. And I know some people might say, hey, yeah, we understand that the Sith have to go bleed a blade that's not theirs. Yeah, I think that factors into this. That's the procedures of it. That's the Sith pamphlet. But I love that it's highlighted of even the walking up to someone and being, attack me, fight me. Yeah. Come on, dude, fight me. Like, I love that and how it leads to that. But I think there's great significance in that.
It's trying to get them to be who the Sith want to believe. That the Sith want to believe that they're all the same, that the Jedi do attack, and that's one of the first lines of dialogue of her saying, oh yes, the Jedi do attack unarmed people, so
yes,
that kind of goes to all the lightsaber of like, let's subvert this, let's prove you're not who you say you are. Which goes to me, the last big thing is I think there's this great theme mood of identity. Obviously, it's extremely literal of what is the truth of Osha and May, who is the Sith. There's lots of labels thrown around in these two episodes of Jedi killer, Mechnek, Padawan, and like, are you defined by those labels? Are you defined by the way you perceive by others? Soul has that great line of, she saw us as protectors. There's lots of labels and identities, and I think it gives the whole thing this great, we've been talking about the whole time, a very Hitchcockian spy thriller vibe. Can we trust anyone? Can we know anyone? Can we even know ourselves? Poor Osha can be with those dreams. Can she even trust her memories? Does she know what really happened? Or is it half a dream and she's half remembering what May has done? I love all of that identity games.
Mechnek, Padawan, give a dog a bone. You've just created a wonderful nursery rhyme. But yeah, no, absolutely. The titles were definitely thrown around. I love that.
Yeah. That. Any other big picture thoughts from you, Jen, about the themes or ideas of the show?
No, I feel like we covered a lot. And now I'm going to go back and watch and find more.
Yeah. Ken?
No, I will issue a correction. I mentioned the song Maggie Been Searching for Our Son by Craig Finn of the Hold Steady, not the Hold Steady, because someone will comment that and I will want revenge. I know. I just misspoke.
Justice. Final thought for me after we've talked about all of these great ideas. I just really want to compliment the writing of that first scene. I think in that first scene with May and Indara, I can get hung up on the fighting's cool, and I wish Indara's death hadn't been spoiled. But that scene is incredibly well structured as like a thesis statement of an essay. All of the main themes are there. This idea of duality between the Jedi and the dark side, the false certainty of the Jedi. Indara saying this is a fight you will not win. Questioning the Jedi by using their empathy against them. This question of identity with the mask ripping down and her going you and being so certain that she knows the identity, but maybe she doesn't. All the way on to, I think, the heart of what this show is going to be dealing with which is the pain of loss awful, traumatic things happening to children, and can you move away from them? The button of May not killing that child is a hugely important thematic beat because it reminds us of who she is, what is truly motivating her. She has what is most likely a justifiable trauma. Now, what does she do? How does she act on that trauma? Just really wanted to compliment that opening scene for being extremely well written and presenting all those ideas in a compact and exciting way.
Yeah, it's a ForceCenter well said on it too. I really like what you said, and it's why we come to the table every week to discuss these things. It was a wonderful, fun sequence. We saw it as a part of the Phantom Menace thing, or saw part of it, I should say. It's a great fight, and there's going to be a lot of discussions about the fighting, the style of fighting, what it means. But you're absolutely right. Talk about an essays, thesis statement. There's your topic sentence. There's English teachers everywhere. Like Leslie Headland, you did a great job. I really, especially the second time around, was like, it's all here. I love that.
Yeah, great stuff. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to be back on the other side to talk a little bit about some of the canon lore connections to other stories, some favorite moments, and some thoughts about what's next. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our epic discussion, as we knew it would be, of the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte. We love discussing ideas, and there's so many, but hey, I'm going to flip this around from our show notes and talk about some of the lore and connection stuff first, because I think there's some really interesting stuff to talk about there in terms of what's not just kind of name checks of things that have existed before, but also the kind of the lore that's internal to the show. So I wanted to start with the Sith mystery. We've all been on the same page of Khmer seems like an obvious suspect. By the end of that second episode, where the identity of the Darksider and or Sith had really been set up as a mystery, where the soul goes into May's mind and says, even if he's gone to great lengths to hide his identity, and even if you wanted to, you couldn't tell me. The show is asking this to be a mystery. So my question to you to start, Ken, is, do you think the mystery of who the Sith is going to be internal to the show, or are we going to get into that dance of bringing in larger lore? Because that's a thing we've been dealing with a lot in pop culture across the board, from Star Wars to Marvel to everything. Of anytime you set up a mystery, there's a real desire for everybody to guess the name from Legacy who's going to have some impact. So how do you feel about that?
I'm leaving open the idea that whoever the Sith Master is might be someone we know or have heard of. I still don't think little Sheevy Palpatine's around and blah, blah, blah. I'm just doing the math on that. I'll defer to Alex and Molly on that. But I think that could be the Master. But this is about this. To me, that's a Sith apprentice with his acolyte. Getting ready to strike, right? That's part of the lore too. Of like, hey, there's only 2 except for you and me. Going to be then we're the 2, and I'm sure you'll just follow along and not try to kill me later on. It's going to be good. So I think it could be split where who that apprentice is that we've seen so far is going to be known maybe, and it's about how people react to that and discover it and get to that. But I could still have some fun and want to have some fun with the idea of. Who's behind them? If that person is even a factor into the show, I don't know.
Yeah,
it could just be a thing.
Jennifer, how do you feel about the Sith mystery? Do you feel like the answer of who's under that helmet of the person we've seen is that all of the suspects are internal to this show, or are you spinning out into which Darth from EU is going to pop up, kind of thing?
That's exactly where my mind went. I think it would be justice for the EU fans, and and Leslie Headland is one of them. Let's be clear, right? So I think that could be kind of great. I don't know, to welcome them back in the fold. EU fans, see, Disney era ain't so bad.
EU fans don't want justice; they want revenge. I'll concede the floor.
Right, but it's like, hey, we can all coexist together in this new era. I kind of like that. Like that. And even if you don't know, like, that's all right. This show has so far done a great job, and because it has to, with the exception of Vernestra Rowe, of just being like, this is kind of new. These are new characters. You don't have to know that much about Star Wars to get into this show. But yeah, if it is a familiar name, why not?
Yeah. No, I really agree, and I think like there's such a big difference between like the way Vernestra was put over in the show. She's just a character, and if you know her, you know her, and that's
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Compared to say like another legacy character, like Bail Organa steps out from the shadows in Rogue One and gets his own music cue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure a ton of people were like, why is that guy I remember from LA Law getting his own music cue? Like, I'm sure a lot of people watching Rogue One were not tuned into the legacy,
Yeah.
but they tried to put him over as legacy guy is here. And I thought there's a really interesting difference between Verdester's just there. And if you know her, great, but there's no need to know her. And the music isn't saying you should already know her. The music isn't saying, why didn't you read those books? In an interesting way. I think that the Sith that we're seeing is the current apprentice in the Rule of Two, trying to recruit their acolyte, and I kind of think this Sith is not going to make it, and I really hope that the mystery of who this Sith is internal to the show. It's Kamir, or there's a twist on it's Kamir, or Yord has a twin, and it's Yorb.
I am Yorb. I follow the rules.
But it's internal to the show. Are they triplets? And is it a third sister? Like whatever. So that helmeted person can be. You don't need to see anything else. But then if we learn if there's a button and Darth, Tenebrous, the Bith Sith. Walks in and he was the master all along, and it's just like, you don't need to know, but people who know him will be elated, and anybody else watching it will go like, oh, the master stepped in. You don't need to know who that is, but I haven't looked, but I'm just kind of afraid that everybody is expecting the mask to come off and have it be your favorite Darth from the EU, and I think it's going to be someone internal to the show because it's this show,
Yeah, I think you could have cake and eat it too with what you're saying. Yeah, internal and then someone behind it. Yeah, and that'd be a good way to do it. I think the Vanessa Rose stuff has been handled wonderfully. I don't think you need to know, right?
Yeah,
right.
Next thing I wanted to talk about, I was inspired by my wife's various wonderful reactions, which it was great because my wife knows just enough about Star Wars to be like, hey, and then the show would answer things. So she's like, why is she going out on that ship? Don't R2 units go out on the ship? And then the show made a thing of it. And she's like, wow, the Jedi Temple is clean and tall. And it was great. But then she was like, hey, where's Yoda? After the first episode, she's like, is Yoda going to pop in? And I was like, well, let's wait until the second episode. So this leads me to the actual question. Vernestra specifically says, we're convening a small council. And so far, Vernestra is sort of the face of what the Jedi Order thinks. Ken, how did you take the small council? Did you? I kind of heard the small council is we're not going to see Yoda. Don't worry about it. It's not the full Jedi Council. It's the small council.
Yeah, I actually think you're right. I don't think we're going to see Yoda, but I really, really want to. Like, I really, and it's not a. You could just have him passing through the hallway. Get Frank Oz to do one line from his phone. I don't care, but like, I really want to see it because, like I said up top, they've already in 2 episodes done a good job of building the world at this time. That I want to know what he's doing. I want to know what he thinks about this. Like, I want to know what he'd say to Saul. And I can assume they've had some conversations about it. Totally can. And like I said, I don't think he'll show up, and I don't think you need him to show up, to be clear. But yeah, that's what I took the small council line as.
Yeah, Jen, how do you feel about the small council line, and do you want to see Yoda?
I want to see the small council. I think we're going to see the small council. I don't think we're going to see Yoda. However, if we do, I want it to be Last Jedi Yoda and redemption for I'm not a fan of Yoda in the prequels. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of the way he looks.
Oh, the way he looks. You mean just
the way he looks?
Oh, okay. You don't mean his attitude. You mean his.
You want Phantom Menace puppet Yoda.
You want
VHS Yoda.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want OG, puppet Yoda. That's what I want.
I got you.
Yeah.
I think it would be.
Yeah. Shaky hologram only Yoda. Is he puppet?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
From there's just a handful of little fun things. The Nemodians obviously were there, which I think ties into the way things are going with their building influence. I like that they had the sort of fun naval hats. I like that it looked like they were going to fight in the Napoleonic Wars on ships. It could be a difficult topic, but I thought it was interesting and good that the accents were calmed down from the way they are in the Phantom Menace,
Yes.
which can be challenging.
Yes.
Jen, did you have any Nemodian thoughts or reactions?
No, I just was happy to see them. It goes along with all the aliens, the little, what was it, the power droid. Just it felt very Star Wars, and it felt like that was what was missing for me in Andor. So I really appreciated that. It's just like, nope, here is everyone. But also getting some new things too. So that was great.
Absolutely. Ken, do you have any Nemodian thoughts?
I have a lot of them. I love that they're there. We kind of knew it was happening. I'm with you, Joseph. There was just a wonderful dialing down of some of the problematic elements that often don't want to be discussed, but it's there, and I think it worked for me, at least speaking personally. But I also love that it kept them who they are. I've even seen some people online kind of the second the Nemodian that kind of spills the beans has this kind of over the top like kind of reaction. That's Nemodians. I even wrote down. I think it's one of my favorite moments, but I think it's definitely lore connection of the Nemodians and the relationship to Jedi showing up is always very like no. It's very like what, but then there's the serious side of it, and it's not subtle, but this idea of this giant. Corporation cutting corners, not following the rules, and suddenly they're now adding shields to their ships. Why is that? I thought Amazon just sold books. Now they're doing other things. What's going on?
And violating, the Republic laws and being like, what? We would never send a human out. That's against the law.
And it's been pointed out so many times. I'm a hack stealing jokes, but violating OSHA laws with OSHA. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yep. We also had, of course, CorpSec is where that's all happening. It's a sector of space in the Outer Rim controlled by the corporations that, of course, gets to have a little bit more influence as time goes on. That is from that original Han Solo novel in 1979, Han Solo at Star's End. In modern canon, it's been brought up in various books, and it's also where Cantonica is in the corporate sector. So they can just go crazy with gambling.
Yep.
Any thoughts or reactions to CorpSec being featured?
Good connection to Andor as well, right? Where a lot of that was going on.
Yeah, and I think for me it's just it is just that nice little light reminder of where the sort of corporate influence in the galaxy is going in this series that's heading toward Phantom Menace. The place that OSHA did not go to party last night, Nar Shaddaa, is the smuggler's moon, the moon of Nal Hutta, the home planet of the Hutts. Which I thought was also interesting to shout out. Any Nar Shaddaa reactions and feelings?
That's all you, Jen. Those
I
Hutts.
know. Maybe we'll see a Hutt. Why not?
They got name checked.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Khmer claimed to be a gun runner for him, so maybe we're gonna see. Maybe the Hutt, maybe the Sith is a Hutt crammed into that suit somehow. Yeah. Couple other quick shout outs. Again, not made anything of, just if you know it, great. The ship that Yord Fondor and his Padawan Tassiloa arrive on is a Jedi vector ship from the High Republic. That artwork has been shared and celebrated and described. But again, there was no you got to read those books or big music cue. It's that was just the ship in the background if you wanted to enjoy it, which was nice. The Bresh Vow was also thrown out, and I think just, in my opinion, totally understandable in context of he stepped away from active Jedi stuff, but the Bresh Vow was introduced in the comics, in the Darth Vader comic in particular, is Jedi who escaped Order 66 because he was having a Bresh Vow is where Vader got his lightsaber crystal to bleed Kirik Infala. I looked up because I can, whenever I try to remember that character's name, I just end up saying folic acid. Kirik Infala.
I always say shirtless guy in ripped jeans is what I say.
Yeah. Yep. And in more modern times, in the Blade comic book, we learned the origin of the Bresh Vow. Final thing I wanted to share, which is just in these ongoing debates of how much is too much Star Wars connection and legacy, the planet that the prison ship crashes lands on, Karlak, is from the Clone Wars episode of Friend in Need, which is notable for Ahsoka meeting Bo-Katan and Bo-Katan doing some truly awful stuff when she was a member of Death Watch. So that was it for canon. Any other things that you wanted to highlight or talk about, Ken?
No. I'm not going to lie. Your note said Joseph will collect these, so I went, Joseph's going to collect these.
Excellent. Didn't want to burden anybody else. Jennifer, any thoughts, other canon thoughts, or should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Got it. We spent a lot of time on the big ideas, but we also want to really stop and enjoy all of the comedy, the action, the weirdness, just a great line delivery or a great shot. So we have this segment of favorite moments to discuss. Jennifer, what were a couple of your favorite moments in these first 2 episodes?
I gave it all away earlier. I've said everything. I realize now looking at my notes. The creepy, scary moments I loved. The fight sequences were fantastic. That to me was what really felt the newest of the new in this series. And I appreciated that they did a lot of wide shots, because oftentimes the fight sequences, close-ups in the action. And that's, done purposefully, but here we see some fantastic work done by both the actors and obviously their stunt doubles. It's done seamlessly. Really, Carrie-Anne Moss as Indara, I was I didn't realize that she was going to die. Like, you guys, I think I totally tuned out all the marketing stuff so well. Good. I was shocked. I'm like, no, she's dead. No, I want more of her. That fight sequence was just top notch. I loved it all.
Yeah, I think the action is really good. I've seen other people saying this too, of like, just what a way to celebrate a group of Jedi who want to fight defensively and having so much skill at dodge, deflect. And I love that Indara was doing nothing but dodging and deflecting, but also still marching at her to be like, we're gonna resolve this. It's great. One of my favorite little action moments is when Indara twists her wrist and pulls the knife out of her hand with the Force, which is, again, like, de-escalate, remove the weapon. This is great stuff there. Ken, what were some of your favorite moments?
Yeah, John, I feel you. Sometimes I get so excited I spill the beans on my list here, but there's just little tiny things I want to focus in on. The moments in the opening fight where May seems out of her element and depth, meaning she wins and she knows how to win, but there's some just moments of the deep breathing and the reaching for the blade she can't get, and the lightsaber comes out when the blades. There's moments where they really focus in, and Amandla Stenberg's doing this wonderful job just with her eyes and playing these characters in a couple of scenes, more than a couple of scenes, a few scenes, but she's just up against something greater than just trying to kill a Jedi, right? And you talk about opening themes, Joseph. Just that's evident there. And the moment of seeing a kid and knowing that's a line I can't cross. And the apprentice of the master is going to eventually be like, you should have crossed that line. What are you talking about? Who cares? So I love that you get that insight into her. Little moment for there. I love Soul. We went into the themes of it, but Soul's lesson to the younglings was so I keep saying warmth. It's maybe it's a play on words, I guess. Soul, sun, warmth. But he has so many warm moments. I love the fire and water can consume you lesson. But later on, when we got the fugitive scene that we know and knew was coming, but when he pulls her Osha back up and she's real close to him now, and he just has such a wonderful. Lee Jung-jae does this amazing job. Just I believe you was one of the best line readings to me, line deliveries of the 2 episodes. I believe you, and that's where he is, and that's where he wants to be, and that's what Osha needs at that point in time, and what Yord can't comprehend. Heavy moment, and that. But yeah, so that's some of the big ones. Some of the comedy stuff is there. We can get into it. I do want to shout out. I know we all will, but pilot chair droids, just wonderful concept.
I love them. They were peak Star Wars for me, and my wife had the same reaction. I watched it, and then I watched it with her, and I was like, is she gonna react to them pilot droid chairs? And like, yep. A great meme for not wanting to deal with stuff. Just fold up and become a chair. Yeah. Great stuff. I really agree with you. I think just some actor delivery that I wanted to compliment is that I love that May has this mantra, Master Blank, we have unfinished business, attack me with all your strength. But I love in the first one where she repeats, attack me, Jedi, with this quivering voice of like the desperation of, I need you to attack me. If I can't bait you into attacking me, this won't work. And how much, I need this. Ken, you were talking about all of her great moments where she was looking maybe out of her element or desperate. I think it's powerful to me because I think it's acted as though, and this is my interpretation of like, yes, a horrible trauma happened to her, and yes, she wants revenge, but the tension of that feels like I can't fail my master. What is going to happen to me if I fail my master? I can't fail this. That desperation was portrayed so well, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite deliveries in these two episodes was also Soul, of when he has taken the knives away from May and says, "You have misunderstood the Jedi arts." In 1999, he was well trained in the Jedi arts, was one of my favorite lines. I just love that. I would go around and talk about the Jedi arts, and then for a while at Kinko's, I would refer to things as the Kinko's arts. I always loved that turn of phrase, but this was so powerful. Disarm, de-escalate. Yeah, you have all this power, but somebody told you to use it in the wrong way. You have misunderstood the Jedi arts. Was just phenomenal to me. Yeah, and then I've been waiting for you, May. We mentioned it's a great delivery. Yeah. It's so haunted and so awful. Everything else for me is all about some comedy beats. So let's talk about those. Jen, I know you said you shared almost everything. Did you have any comedy beats that spoke to you? And if not, no worries.
Oh my gosh, no! I can't think of. I mean, you know what was really funny to me though was the Pip droid or Pip. Pip was like this anxious droid, and I see C-3PO as being kind of anxious, right? But this really amped it up to where she almost has to take care of Pip and handle Pip's catastrophic thinking. I really appreciated that and could identify with Pip.
Yep. No, and Pip had some great moments. I think Pip's a great evolution of a droid, and I've already seen people have the discussion of like, yep, he's a good droid to sell, but like, okay, but he's also a good evolution on a droid. Yes. I like that is a different, kind of relationship, and it showed us so much about May's character that he was that Pip's a friend. Yes. Anyway, Ken, you have some comedy moments.
So I'm rolling my eyes at the cynical Star Wars put a toy on screen take that's been present since 1980 or 77, even if you want to go there. I will gladly buy a Pip. Also, I'd like a real Pip because someone who's not good at household repairs, I'd love to have a screwdriver droid. Tell me what to do and do it for me. I think it's great. Jackie, Daphne Keene, as you said, Jen's doing a great job, but I love, is it Yord? What's wrong with Yord? Like, what a setup for a character we're about to meet. I love that.
What's wrong with Yord is just like, it's so great. What's wrong with Yord?
And Jackie has a great, maybe start explaining moment earlier, which is almost a meta line for me. That's all there. I liked, I noted this down here too. It made me think of Rise of Skywalker. Lightsabers as flashlights. Underrated use for them. I didn't factor that into a lot of my playing as a kid, but Yord kind of holding up that yellow blade as they go down the hallways there, the caves. I like little things like that.
Yeah, little lightsaber, little fear maybe, a little ready with that lightsaber. A couple other quick ones for me is I did like the big weird alien in the prison ship talking about the Dubiak, who says it does weird stuff to your brain.
Yeah. He was great.
He is great, weirdo. We talked about the Nimodian's reaction, but I love that it's literally Jedi. Ugh. Yeah. And it's literally the captions. Ugh is great. Final thing for me, we haven't really touched on the great teaser of Cal Naka. I applauded for that whole beat. I thought, to me, it was a great cliffhanger because the episode was about Torbin's death. It was about May and Osha coming face to face with each other. It was about the adventure on that planet, and that kind of resolved. And then we had this tag at the end where we're looking forward to the next episode. So I really just wanted to compliment that structure because I enjoy that. But then also just what a great tease. I loved, again, him disarming someone. And then when they're walking away, the get off my Wookiee lawn gesture that he does, I'm like, keep going. Gold. I applauded alone in my home when I saw that. That is it for me. Any other moments that you wanted to share, Ken?
No. All good. You covered them.
All right. Well, we shall move on to, we hinted about talking about anything that we disliked or questioned. Jen, was there anything that you disliked or questioned in these two episodes?
This is the first Star Wars series that I have no notes for. No, like literally no notes. It's
Awesome.
perfect in my book. Yeah.
That's great. Ken, we talked about the marketing. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that or anything else?
Yeah, that some of the structured stuff there too. But I'm going to count OSHA saying, "Can you give me a hand?" as the criminal has the droid hand. I'm going to count it as wordplay, and I filed my complaint with the Comedy Office. And get that taken care of. Yeah, no, look, I want to be clear, especially as we're hoping newer folks swing into our discussions here, which does happen when shows are out. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have marketed the show. I'm not saying that Adam Driver's dream of "I wish there was not one commercial for Last Jedi" going into the film. I'm not saying I want that to come true, because that's not how it works. I think they did a great job marketing the show. I think the show has said, cool, great, you saw our poster with the clue on it. It's not about that. That's the start of the journey. But I cannot deny that particularly the first episode had some of those, and I know we're not alone in this, had some of those, I bet this happens now. Oh, that means that. And we've had that discussion going back to 2014. We had discussion this past week on our Q&A and news show about it. You can't change it. So I do have to let it go and just know that, like you said, Jen, you were caught off guard when Carrie Ann Moss, dies in the opening scene. That's been, I'm happy for you, because that's been like texted to me.
Oh my gosh.
Well, this probably happens. Yeah, can we all just calm down and watch the show? But I know that's not reality. And so I have to let that go and just take it and know that, hey, the celebration, the looking for hope, looking for the light in the dark, is that most of the trailer stuff has been covered, and now it's really uncharted territory.
Yeah, and I think the big trailer stuff that is still affecting me is obvious, that we're going to deal with what happened in the past, and we know that from some of the trailers. Some of it's affecting me of some very specific shots. You can now start to piece together, well, maybe this happened, maybe that happened. But it's not. Yeah, I think, if anybody is watching for the first time, we always want to, we're often described as a positive show. And I think what we mean by that is we want to be positive in the way that we discuss it. It doesn't mean that we won't have things that sometimes we struggle with or dislike, but we want to say it in a polite way. And we never want to say anything mean about creators as people and things like that. I accept that the marketing is going to be in onslaught, and it should be, in that for in the bubble fans, you got to kind of dole out a little bit more and a little bit more. I will go on record and say, I don't think the marketing of this would have been hurt if you simply didn't do the shot of Indara's lightsaber on the floor. When you're going to share that many previews of the Indara fight, also sharing a shot that makes it pretty clear how it's going to end, I think is, for me, not a criticism of the show, but a criticism of the marketing. And I accept and will let go that we can't control that it's going to be a deluge. I would hope for a deluge that is a little bit more mindful of, you're making this for the general public, but also for in the bubble people who are going to study every scene. I would even be fine with the poster not having had the two having May and OSHA, because I think the twin thing would have popped for me even more. Luckily, I love so much about the first episode that I wasn't taken out of it. But the marketing did negatively impact the first episode for me, and I got to be honest about that. And then let it go. Ken, was there anything else that you wanted to share? You kind of hinted at maybe some structure challenges.
Hey, look, this is why I love it's our 10 years of ForceCenter of I come to it and how these things connect to my life, your life, the real world, how it helps me understand or even change my opinion on the real world. Is why I keep coming back to Star Wars, maybe even over any other things. That doesn't mean I sat there on these two episodes and thought they're 100%, and I wouldn't expect them to be. We're coming off Bad Batch, which is my favorite Star Wars show so far, which sets a bar inside me emotionally that's hard to get over. And this show, I think, is moving the needle. I am open with my struggles with Ahsoka as a show, just in a real world sense. Some of the things, direction, writing, and acting that I didn't gel with, others did, and that's what we do here. We don't take that away from you. I have to deal with myself. All that said, I'm with Jen. You got no notes, because I sometimes have no notes. I don't have notes. Who am I to give these notes to these wonderful, talented people? I do want to see. There's some kind of zest sometimes missing. That's why I was talking about it. It's not just simply Star Wars on TV. It's just Star Wars in a new era, and a post movie in a theater every year streaming era. This is what I'm talking about. The second half of this Lucasfilm Disney era is just presented a little different because all things are presented a little different now on television, what used to be called television. And so I rub up against some of it because it just I want it to feel bigger, and that's not in terms of plot, stakes, or anything. It's just sometimes I do want it to feel better. I want to go wait in line. I want to go. Star Wars. That's why I was a Star Wars fan more so than a Star Trek fan growing up. Like that's Saturday nights at 8. I want to go Friday night in the theater. And so I carry that forward with me a little bit, and sometimes it feels there. I like the endings of these episodes. They had a little bit of a serious version of Arrested Development's Next Time On, which were completely faked written things. But they had, I think the episodes had these endings and then they had these tags. Joseph, you and I never want to speak to you, but we've been a little, Jenna, definitely don't want to pull you into this because it upset some people. I've had some issues with some of the modern television shows, streaming shows, and how they end and how they're these one long movies. And I just don't think some of it's, ended correctly. Not correctly is not the wrong term, but I just
correctly for you, right? I mean,
for me.
And that's the
I don't
thing for me,
jive. I don't jive with them. Yeah, I don't jive with them. We've been warned that maybe we should let that go as well in this series. So I'm just trying to get there.
Yeah,
Trying to get there.
we'll see. We'll see. And yes, I've had some structural issues with the cliffhangers in some Star Wars shows and in some Marvel shows, and it has to do with structure. And
it's
that's
not just Star Wars. It's not just Star Wars. Sorry,
because it's a new era of storytelling where some of the you find yourself a grizzled old veteran who wrote procedurals in the 90s, early 2000s for network television, and that was a clock, and that has. It has downsides to it, and it has some value to it in that structure is gone largely from streaming. And sometimes I feel that, which is why I think I've thought for myself, what do I enjoy? I enjoy if it feels like this one episode dealt with this idea and then ends with that idea is complete. Now we're going to kind of start the sentence of the next idea. So you lean in. And I feel like some of these endings have been a sentence cut off in the middle, not resolved. So that's my thing. I'll also say I overall absolutely love Acolyte. There's like one or two like, that line delivery didn't land for me. That shot looks great. That shot does look like there's something like, is that the volume? I think there is a weird thing where I've heard people discussing some modern Star Wars looking like fan films. And I like, and I think that's partially just because fan films look really great. So which thing is coming to meet which thing? But like, I'll be honest, there are things that I'm like, that one beat is not for me. That one beat I'm not sure about. I don't want to live in that and overly focus on that, because the big picture of what I get out of this show is, to me, this great central idea that I'm pulling from it of, we all have trauma. Some of us much more horrible than others, but we all have it. And like, I'll be honest, on Monday after we recorded, I had like a bad day in every way, and I got furious to the point that when my wife walked in the door, I just had to say, I'm furious and I can't stop. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try not to act on it because I know I'm at that level, and I was furious about, emails and a leaf blower and, and those things, bringing up everything that's bothered me in my life. And it's not because I'm a space wizard who maybe caused the death of children, but the lessons that are here to be calm like Saul, to try to say that anger's real, that pain is real, but what do I choose to do with it? That is so much more important for me to get out of this than I didn't like that one shot, So I think that's anybody who's coming in new. I think that's really where we focus on. That's why we spend so much time on the big ideas and not really chewing over every little thing that doesn't work for us.
Indeed.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that either of you wanted to touch on?
I think we did it. I normally have a little dangling parts, but we talked about the music, all that kind of stuff. No, it's going to be fun. This is a great journey.
Jennifer, anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
I love all the performances. I think that it's some of the best in the Star Wars series so far for me. And Lee Jung-jae is like this, he does not speak, like this was his first time, right, acting in English.
As I understand it, yeah.
Yeah, that
Could be
is
wrong.
so difficult, but it is such a testament to like how communication works. This beyond language, he is able to convey so much with his body posture and his eyes, and I'm like, whoo, he is doing this in another language, and he's acting like circles around some of these other performances that we've gotten before. No shade, sorry, but just like when it's done well, it hits me in my core. Like I can be like, oh, this person's good, and it's all kind of here, right, for me when I'm experiencing their performance. But when someone's acting from their gut, like he really is, I'm just like, oh yes, this is why I love Star Wars. So great, so great. So shout out to all the actors.
Really agree. Those moments like Ken has highlighted too, it's just you feel that warmth from him and you just want to lean in. Like, Saul, could you talk to me about my problems?
Can we get can I get him like on my phone? Like that's the kind of like AI stuff that I want, so I can talk to Master Soul.
Could you catch me when I fall, Saul?
Please.
Help me. All right. That is great. A great way to end our discussion. We always have a little pop of fun right here at the end. Ken, if you could have a figure or merch of any character or idea or anything from this episode, what would you want?
I want that sign that Kalnaka has that I'm pretty sure says "Get the F away" in Sherwook. I want that.
Yep. Yeah. Get off my lawn. And by the way, the entire planet is my lawn.
Yeah.
Is the vibe there. I have pre-ordered my Jedi Soul 3 3/4 vintage action figure, so I want him to show up. And then, man, I want old school days where they make every background weirdo, because I want that little not Jawa informant, that little guy at the beginning with the orange baubles.
Yeah. So good.
What a beautiful weirdo. Jennifer, if you could have any sort of merch or toy from inspired by these episodes, what do you want?
A real life Pip, like we said. I want the real life thing. Come on, that's the future that I want. Give me Pip.
Yep. Pip or incorrect answers about healthcare from Google. Those are our choices for the technological future. I don't think
glue on your
Pip.
Pizza. Heard about that? Sorry.
Yes, I did. I don't think Pip would tell you to put glue on your pizza, and that's the future we want. Anyway, that is it. Ken, you want to take us home?
I do. We're the ForceCenter podcast and ForceCenter show. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for being here. We can be found on social media at ForceCenter Pod. Our Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're on Instagram. Here on YouTube, subscribe. We got some goals to grow our subscriber base here, but we've always been a podcast, always will be a podcast. You can find us in a lot of spots, including Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and more. Just to search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And you can also support us directly on Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. There is a vibrant Discord discussion going on right now with our ForceCenter supporters talking about the Acolyte there. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com, for more, including my headlining show locally here in Burbank at Flappers on June 30th. I got ticket information on the site. If you're local, love to see you come on out. Jen, where can they find you? And maybe eventually one day when you get a real Pip and you're going to show it online, where can they find you?
Oh, you'll see me unboxing my special Pip on where am I? Everywhere at Jennifer Landa, TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go. Joseph, take us home. Great stuff. Where can they find you and your soul figure?
Yes, you can find me on almost all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, particularly enjoying Blue Sky and Instagram, but my handle at Joseph Scrimshaw on all that social media. You can also go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to what's going on with some of my short films and my blog that comes out every Tuesday, Finish Your Monsters, all about creative pursuits and dealing with ups and downs. Again, that's on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. That is it for us. This has been the first episode of the Acolyte Report.